Congratulations, you have got imposter syndrome and it is stopping you from making as much money as you are capable of, as well as building the business that you dream about. So I'm going to give you 5 actionable steps that you can take to overcome your imposter syndrome, but there's a few things that I want you to know first. First and foremost, we are not trying to get rid of imposter syndrome because it is literally wired into us to keep us safe. So our task is to reframe our mindset, and it is also to just reframe our thoughts so that we can get out of our own way. But how do you know that you actually have imposter syndrome? Because it's a term that's thrown around on the internet quite a lot right now. Well, there's a few telltale signs or telltale thoughts that I can give to you so that you know for sure. You might be the kind of person that thinks that your success is down to luck rather than all of the hard work that you put in. You might be comparing yourself to other people and thinking that they are better than you, and you might also be downplaying your achievements as well. But also, no matter how much evidence you have, you still don't feel like you are good enough and able to replicate it. So these are all things that are just so clearly imposter syndrome getting into your head and just making you procrastinate, not be as productive, not try things out, and play it safe or not take risks so that you can actually become a great entrepreneur. So if you leave your imposter syndrome and do not deal with it, it can lead to a serious decline in your well-being, and it's no wonder that us entrepreneurs suffer with more mental health problems than the average person. But also, our brains have a negativity bias to keep us safe, so we have to reframe our thoughts. A good reframe for me was when I was listening to the radio a few years ago, and they were talking about Ed Sheeran, and Ed Sheeran was saying that he sometimes doesn't feel good enough and he sometimes feels like people don't like him. Now, for me, Ed Sheeran is one of the most likable people in the world, but also, like, him and Adele have completely smashed the music industry. And if he doesn't feel good about himself and if he feels like people don't like him, then what chance do the rest of us have? So imposter syndrome literally hits all of us. So you are not alone in this. So our very first step is to be self-compassionate and also to increase our knowledge of imposter syndrome so that we can stop it from taking over. Now, why do some people have imposter syndrome? Well, if you look at some of the expert publications such as Psychology Today, you'll read that it's sometimes about personality, but it can sometimes come about from being placed in a high pressure environment or a competitive environment. Now, it's no wonder that I have had multiple businesses. I've got 3 first-class degrees. I've had a big corporate career and I'm only 35 because my parents literally pushed me when I was younger to do better. They were always telling me that I could always do better, achieve more. And so that's carried through into my adult life. So I'm a bit of a perfectionist, but I also put myself down because I do genuinely believe that I can do better. So while some people look at that quite negatively, I believe that being placed in that environment, that competitive environment and high pressure environment as a kid has actually enabled me to achieve a lot. So I'm very, very grateful to my parents for that. But sometimes it does mean that I need to deal with my own imposter syndrome and my own perfectionism and know when to just celebrate myself. But the last thing that I want you to know before I go into the tips is that it is scientifically proven that if you beat your imposter syndrome or start to overcome your imposter syndrome, then you can thrive, which is literally what we are here to do as entrepreneurs, right? So my first tip is all about perfectionism. You will hear a lot on the internet, people talk about you need to take messy action. And if you're not embarrassed about a product that you created or your social media account from a year ago, you were spending too much time on it. Now, I am incredibly embarrassed about my social media account from a year ago. It's just not how I want to represent myself at all. But I was working full time in a global job and I just wanted to get this business off the ground and sign clients. So I literally just put stuff out there, took messy action and started making money right away. So you can too. So what I do is I give myself a time limit to create something and I make it just good enough to put out into the world. So you might have heard the term minimum viable product. We want to make it just good enough that it can do the job, and then we put it out there and then we make it better. So take messy action. Don't be afraid to put things out that aren't quite perfect because it's literally going to stop you from putting anything out there in the world at all, which means you'll have no product and no social media account and no clients and no money. Now, next up is evidence. So you have to look for the evidence of your accomplishments and all the things that you have done really well. So I do this by having a thank you folder, and in it is all of my favorite moments and moments that I've created in my life or things that I've achieved. So you'll see in there's like pictures of when I've been traveling that I've paid for through my corporate career. There's pictures of my graduation, when I had my first baby, but there's also things like Trustpilot reviews, or the first people that joined my group program, or when I got on TV, or when I got invited to the House of Lords. Like all of these accomplishments, as well as the feedback I've had from my clients and my friends telling me that I was literally born to do this. So make a folder and put all of your achievements in there so that when you have imposter syndrome, you can go have a look through it and feel really good about all the things that you actually achieved. Now, I have new videos every week, so hit subscribe if you don't want to miss out on ways to increase your sales, resilience, and happiness. Now, the next tip I have is to stop comparing yourself to other people. Now, I have been building businesses for 6 years. I've had a corporate career for 15 years. I'm 35 and I've done a lot, right? So I've been learning about this for such a long time that my journey and where I'm at cannot be compared to your journey and where you're at. Just like I can't compare myself to all of the millionaires out there or the big coaches, because I've only been doing this a year. So while I've been building other businesses, I just can't compare my level of coaching with other people's level of coaching, even though I'm getting all the feedback that it's really good, right? So I have to reframe my thoughts, and I invite you to reframe your thoughts as well. They have not had the same life as you. They have not had the same circumstances. They do not have the same strengths. They do not have the same ambitions, the same loves. So why would we ever compare ourselves to other people? So every time you find you're comparing yourself to other people, I want you to stop and take a breath, but also stop scrolling on social media, because on social media, everyone shares the best bits, right? So you're comparing yourself to the absolute best of people's lives rather than the behind the scenes that everyone is going through. Unless obviously you're scrolling and seeing my content, because I share the highs and the lows, because I don't want you to feel like this is an easy ride. It absolutely isn't. So remember, we are only in competition with ourselves, and we are not here to compare ourselves to other people's journeys. Next up, I want you to start labeling your emotions, and there's a really good reason for this. Now, negative emotions can stifle us. They can be the difference between us taking action and not doing anything. They can make us procrastinate, they can derail us, and often imposter syndrome comes with a lot of negative emotions. But emotions are normal, and they're a really valuable part of the human experience. So when we have strong emotions, the first thing we want to do is say out loud what emotion we are experiencing. Now, why do we want to do that? Well, when we label our emotions, we actually regain control over our emotional centers. And that means that we can actually reduce the duration of the emotion as well as the intensity. So we actually feel it less. And that means we can get back to what we're doing. So if you are feeling imposter syndrome, then I just want you to sit there and just start shouting out what negative emotion you're experiencing so that you can start to move on from it. Now, one of the most important tips, and the thing that changed the game for me, was learning to cultivate a growth mindset, which is what I do with my clients. So let's do a little test. Do you think that people are naturally talented? They're literally born with it, whether it is something physical or whether it is intelligence. Do you think that there are some things you will never ever be good at, no matter how hard you try? And when you fail at something because you've never done it before, you don't want to publicly be seen to fail. So you might not try at all, or you might hide your mistakes. Now, this is a telltale sign of a fixed mindset, like all of those things. Now, research shows that people who are willing to learn, who are willing to put hard work in to be good at something, who are willing to make mistakes and accept that actually to be good at something, you have to try at it, they're likely to be more successful, way more than people who appear to be talented. And the great thing about this is that everyone can learn to cultivate this growth mindset rather than sit in this fixed mindset, which is literally holding you back. And a growth mindset is so crucial to overcoming your imposter syndrome. So when I feel like I've got imposter syndrome, I remind myself of where I was a year ago and how far I've come, but I also remind myself that there is so much more to learn, and if I just continue on this path, that I will start to feel better and become more confident. So I will literally break down my imposter syndrome by creating more evidence that I'm good at what I do. So if you are struggling with imposter syndrome and you know that it is holding you back, then I want you to book a call with me in the comments. Coaches are scientifically proven to help you break down your imposter syndrome, which means that you're gonna make more money. So don't sit there in your fixed mindset thinking that there is nothing you can do about it. I am literally here to help, and the first call is completely free, so you have absolutely nothing to lose.